yeah, it was kind of a weird time to be pregnant for sure. It shattered into a million pieces.
Hello, everyone. You're listening to Baby Steps, sponsored by Oxford and Soho Baby, a podcast dedicated to exploring the personal and emotional journeys of parenting. I'm your host. My name is Medea. Today I have Nikki, head of brand at Nurture and mother of two. Nikki, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Of course. So we're going to start by going back to your first pregnancy.
Okay. So,
So can you take us back to the moment you found out you were pregnant? What was that experience like?
oh my gosh. Well, so yeah, so my oldest is now 3.5. So I found out, guess a little over 4 years ago. It was peak pandemic season, so I was spending a lot of time at home.
Mhm.
And I actually had COVID and I was feeling awful from that and really just thought that my COVID symptoms were a little prolonged. And I said to my husband, and we had tried that month that was our first month of trying. But I just assumed that because I had a fever and I was, sick with COVID, that it didn't work. And I said to him, most of the COVID symptoms are gone, but I'm still really nauseous. And I decided to take a test. I actually took it, it was in the middle of the night and was like, okay, I was really literal. They say first P of the morning. So I took it at like 3:30 in the morning and I freaked out. And I remember just like having every joyous emotion you could think about I had in that moment, even though we had just started trying and are so grateful to have gotten pregnant so quickly. I really had been like thinking about this baby and had been preparing for this next step for so long that it really did feel like a dream come true, and it still does.
That's so cute. How did you tell your family, friends?
So yeah, we pretty much told everyone, all of the immediate family in the first trimester, and in different ways. We were seeing my mom for Thanksgiving, and I was only 8 weeks along then, so not showing her anything. And I remember giving her a card that had the ultrasound photo in there, and I gave my dad a t-shirt that said like cool grandpa. So I had different ways of telling different people in our lives. My mother-in-law is actually a retired OBGYN. So she was our first phone call because I needed her on my side to like be able to ask
Mhm.
questions. So she found out really, really early. But yeah, we told everyone individually and it was just such a special time. And I'm an only child. My husband is the oldest in his family, so we were and still have the only grandchildren on both sides. So it was just so exciting and special to be able to share that news with everyone.
That is so cute. What were your initial emotions during those first few weeks?
I mean, it felt very surreal. Like I just couldn't believe that I was pregnant, that this next life stage was sort of upon us. I remember the first pregnancy. It was during COVID, so we weren't really leaving the house. And I do remember it feeling very, very long. And I mostly just felt excited. And actually, it was in my second and now third pregnancy that I'm more like, okay, we can slow this down a little bit. Like, I know what's about to come. I
Mhm.
think that the first time I was pregnant, I just wanted to speed it all up. I wanted the baby to be here already, and I wanted to start that phase. Now that I'm in it and really in the thick of it, I'm like, okay, I get why pregnancy takes as long as it does. Like this little baby is growing, but you're also growing into this new role. And that takes time and is worth savoring as well.
Yeah. So the first pregnancy was during COVID. Were your doctor's appointments in person?
Everything was in person, but my husband couldn't really attend anything. The only thing I think he was able to attend the very first appointment, and then that was it. So I remember the anatomy scan. He sat out in the parking lot and looked at it on
Oh,
video. But he unfortunately couldn't be in the room with me, so we were grateful for subsequent pregnancies that he was able to join. But yeah, it was kind of a weird time to be pregnant for sure.
yeah. Were there any other any other weird things that happened during that time because of COVID?
I think in general, there was just such a heightened stress and anxiety around like health and the unknown. And I had been pregnant when I had COVID and not known. I mean, it was so early, but I always kind of had that in the back of my head. I remember the vaccine rolling out, and that was a big question of like, do I get the vaccine? Do I wait until I give birth? Like, there were just so many unknowns, and everyone was on edge. But on the positive side, and having now been through two, or I guess 1.5 pregnancies, not in a COVID time, I actually really appreciated in retrospect the ability to like really relax and to not have any social pressure and to just be able to kind of nest and settle in, especially with my husband was so nice in retrospect. That was a positive of it.
Yeah, because right now you still have to do things and go out while being pregnant, which is a lot. But at the
Completely.
time, we were able to just chill, relax, which must have been,
Exactly.
yeah, which was so nice. Um,
Totally.
did you get any advice from friends, family, doctors that really stuck with you throughout your pregnancy?
Oh, that's great advice or a great question. I think I'm trying to think of anything specific or tangible that really stuck with me. Um, I remember so when it came, like I said, my first pregnancy was I was nearing the end of the first trimester when the vaccine rollout was taking place. And there was really no data at that point around the vaccine's effect on pregnant women or on their babies.
Hmm.
And I remember being really torn up about what to do. And my mother-in-law, who, like I said, is a medical professional, she was an OB for many years and a gynecologist for even longer, kind of just said, this is the first of many, many decisions that you're going to make as a mom where you don't know the outcome and you just have to listen to your gut. And and also that there's not like necessarily a wrong or a right decision. And I
Hmm.
think that that was a really, really like that was really sound advice because ultimately she was so right. I mean, from childcare to sleep training or not to basically everything you do from the time they come out of you until they are well on their way into adulthood. Like there is no specific rule book. I mean, there's many pieces of advice out there, but at the end of the day, like you really have to kind of hone in on what's right for you and for your specific child. And now having had two babies, I can say that they're wildly different as well. And the choices that I've made with both of them have been different too. So I think that that was probably the best advice I got.
So listening to your gut.
Yeah, listening to your gut and and kind of being able to take in information, but also tuning out outside noise to make the right decision for you and for your family.
Yeah, I like that. So you have a 2-year-old and a 3-year-old,
Yes,
correct?
yes,
What has
correct.
been the hardest part? So now moving on to actually having the child. So what has been the hardest part in raising a child?
Oh my goodness, there's so many hard parts, but there are also so many wonderful parts. I think in general, like it's very exhausting. And especially as they get into the toddler years. I mean, I've heard many times and I've seen it, I see it every day and all day that their brains really are under construction. So like I see it with my little one who just turned 2 recently. He is having all of the feelings and emotions as like his almost as if his brain is fully developed with none of the coping mechanisms. And so his reactions are so big and both of them. Like yesterday I didn't hand him, we were making like little bowls for dinner, like rice bowls. I didn't hand him the rice fast enough and he chucked the bowl across the room. It shattered into a million pieces. This is coming after me having gotten up at 5 a.m. to have a full work day then so that I could take care of them. This is like my few hours that I have with them alone, every night that's so secret and special to me. Um, And he like does this thing that creates this huge problem. But I can't get mad at him the way that I would if it was any other person, right? Because he doesn't have the tools. He was frustrated, and that was his first reaction. And so I think the hardest thing is being able to like check myself before I react to them. Because parenting is so revealing, and I realize that there's so much about me that needs work and that like needs to be able to cope with, and that I don't want to project onto them. So obviously, I am not like going about like, oh, that's great, thanks for doing that. But for me to yell at him the way like my husband did it would not teach him anything, would probably induce a lot of shame, and really probably wouldn't solve it for the future. So I think that being a parent has been the most revealing experience to date by a landslide.
Yeah, because while they're growing, you're growing as well. And while
Completely.
you're teaching them, they're teaching you as well.
Absolutely. They're our best teachers and our best mirrors.
Yeah. What has been your favorite part about raising a child?
Oh my gosh. I love so much about it. I would say seeing their reactions to the world, like they're just so pure. And so the smallest things can spark so much joy and excitement. I got my son, he and I both love the color pink, and he had always commented on my pajamas. And so my older son, I have two boys.
Mm.
And the older boy like always comes on my pajamas. He loves pink, and I got him a pair of matching pajamas for the holidays. And he like every time he puts them on, which is like every night, he's like, "We're gonna match today. This is the best gift ever. Thank you, mommy. Thank you." Like his ability to be so delighted by a pair of PJs teaches me so much. And I think as adults, like we get really bogged down with what's not working. And of course, children have the big reactions to what's not working for them as well all day long. But they also have similar reactions to what delights and excites them. And it just has reminded me to like see the world through these fresh eyes, and it's such a beautiful way to live.
Yeah, that is so cute. Um, I've heard a lot about gentle parenting. Do you incorporate that into your parenting?
Absolutely. I mean, I sort of like to take, again, kind of going back to that initial piece of advice I received, I take it all in, and then I like try it on for size, and we kind of do what works. And what works for one kid often isn't exactly what would work for another kid. So, for example, one gentle parenting technique that I've found works pretty well for both is the introduction of a calming corner. So, having a place in the house where when things get like when they get really, really overtaken by an emotion that they're having and they're not able to regulate and kind of get back to a steady state, I'll often pick one of them up, the one that's having a problem, bring them over to the calming corner. We have like different sensory activities over there. Sometimes we're just really sitting and I'm just holding them. And I would say that like for my younger son or for my older son, we introduced it faster. Like earlier on, he had a lot more emotions and bigger feelings that he was showing at an earlier age. Whereas my younger son is not only really just starting to show that at 2. And so, but for both of them, it's worked well. But then there's other techniques that I find have worked that aren't necessarily like within the gentle parenting scope. Like sometimes we do introduce the element of consequences, which I think has been maybe spoken about less in that world, but I find has helped, particularly with my older son. And is something that I think is also a great tool for life because there are consequences in life. And of
Mhm.
course, the consequences are commensurate with him and his age, and nothing that would ever fall out of the bounds of what's appropriate. But I think like teaching them of like, hey, you have a choice here. You might be having a big emotion, you might be having a hard time. That's okay. But also, you have a choice, and it's up to you to make the choice that's going to serve you and your interests best. And I think that that has been like an addition to all of the gentle parenting stuff that I've really utilized.
I like that. I like the calming corner. I feel like I should do that for myself.
I love my comic corner. I do model it. There are many times that they like, I mean, yesterday after the 2-year-old chucking the bowl was like the second time. We'd also chucked like a thing of spices across that had crashed, and I had cumin all over our floors. And before I cleaned it up, I went into the common corner. I took a deep breath, and I came back. Like they gotta know that we have emotions too, you know. It's not just them.
Yeah. Final question. What advice would you give to other mothers listening?
Wow. I think first of all, you're doing great. And to tell yourself that and to tell yourself that every day. Like you're getting through the day, that's a win. And it's not always easy and it's not always amazing. But to kind of try to find one thing during the day that did feel like a win, I think is like a nice way to the end of the day. I know for me, bedtime can be quite the struggle. And so it's really easy sometimes to put them to bed and just collapse onto my bed and be like, wow, I'm glad that was over with. But if I can just take a few minutes to kind of reflect, and feel good about how I ended things or how like something that happened that I did that day. Like I say every night, I text my husband when he's at work, like I'm a hero, you know, and I'm not doing anything that anyone else isn't doing, but just getting through the day. Like it's really hard right now, and that's okay. And it's also really great, and that's also okay. So all things are true, and just know that you're doing great.
I love that. That's all we have for today. Nikki, thank you for coming on. Listeners, thank you for tuning in. You've been listening to Baby Steps, sponsored by Oxford and Soho Baby. Have a great rest of your day, everyone.
You've been listening to Baby Steps, sponsored by Oxford and Soho Baby. If you're in the market for a new crib, glider, dresser, or more, we'd love for you to check out our line of furniture. Head over to oxfordbabyandkids.com or sohobaby.com. All links are within the show notes. For more information as a listener, enter the code PODCAST10 for 10% off your total purchase, plus free shipping on all orders over $799. Thanks for listening and tune into our next episode. Bye for now, and remember, every step is a step towards progress. We hope today's story gives you the confidence and the assurance that every journey is different, but we do it together.